You walk toward her with that familiar tension in your chest. Your heart speeds up, your mind sharpens, and you tell yourself this time will be different. You'll say the right thing, you'll be confident, you'll be smooth. And yet within seconds something collapses. Her eyes lose their shine. Her body angles away. The smile fades before it ever settles. Nothing dramatic happened. No mistake you can point to. But she felt it. The absence of gravity. The quiet signal that says you're asking the moment to carry you instead of carrying it yourself. That's the moment attraction dies. Not loudly, not cruelly. It evaporates, like heat leaving a room. Machiavelli understood this long before dating apps and rooftop bars. He saw the same pattern play out in courts and kingdoms. Power does not respond to need. Desire does not rise to meet comfort. What draws people in is tension, the sense that you stand on your own ground whether they join you or not. When you need the other person to validate the moment, you've already surrendered the frame. Attraction doesn't punish you for being imperfect. It punishes you for being unanchored. Most men misunderstand where they lose her. They think it happens when they run out of things to say. But that's not the fracture. The fracture happens earlier. In the instant your energy tilts toward her, waiting. The moment your presence asks a question before it makes a statement. The moment you hand her the responsibility of deciding whether you matter. And nothing exposes that faster than opening with the safest questions in the world. What do you do? Where are you from? How long have you been here? To you, it feels polite. To her, it feels like a burden she never agreed to carry. Picture this. A man steps into a rooftop bar at sunset. He's put together, clean jacket, calm smile. On paper, nothing is missing. He sees her standing near the edge, city lights catching the side of her face. He approaches and opens with a question she's answered 100 times. She replies automatically, already drifting elsewhere. He nods, searching for the next question, filling the space not with intention but with noise. Each sentence asks her to do more work, to provide momentum, to rescue the moment. Within 2 minutes, her mind has already moved on. Not because he said the wrong words, but because his presence never claimed the room. From her side, the experience is always the same. Another man leaning in slightly too far. Another smile that asks for approval. Another laugh meant to soften tension instead of holding it. She doesn't analyze it consciously. She reads it the way animals read posture. Is this man steady, or is he shifting to fit me? Is he standing on his own weight, or borrowing mine? And once she feels that borrowing, attraction collapses into courtesy. You don't feel rejected. You feel politely dismissed. That's worse, because you don't even know when it happened. Machiavelli would have called this a fatal error, giving control of the stage to the very person you want to follow you. In any theater, the one asking questions is not the lead. Desire is not built by collecting information. It's built by creating a feeling that exists before words. The mistake isn't curiosity. The mistake is confusing curiosity with interrogation. You think you're showing interest. She feels you outsourcing the moment. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When you open with questions, you're not being respectful. You're signaling uncertainty. You're saying without realizing it, I don't know what to bring here, so I hope you'll bring it for me. That energy registers instantly. Neediness isn't loud. It's subtle. It hides inside politeness, inside manners, inside the desire to be liked. And Machiavelli warned that the man who seeks permission has already surrendered power, not because he asked, but because of why he asked. Think of attraction like fire. Comfort is oxygen controlled and steady. It keeps things safe, predictable, warm. But desire needs friction. It needs a spark. When you ask safe questions, you remove friction. You smooth every edge. You turn the moment into an interview where she evaluates whether you're worth carrying forward. And no one wants to be the engine for someone else's presence. The alternative is not arrogance. It's ownership. You don't open with questions. You open with a frame, an observation, a statement that plants the scene in your world. Not to impress her, but to show her there is already a world here. When you do that, the energy reverses. She leans in not to rescue the conversation, but to explore it. You're no longer asking for entry. You're inviting. This is the essence Machiavelli understood. Power doesn't announce itself. It establishes ground and lets others decide whether to step onto it. When your presence is grounded, your words become secondary. Silence gains weight. Eye contact steadies instead of searches. Your posture says you belong before your mouth opens. And suddenly, the same woman who drifted away feels something she can't name. Not excitement, not comfort, tension. The good kind. The kind that makes her stay a second longer. Most men never learn this because they were taught the opposite. Be nice. Be curious. Make her the center. But attraction doesn't grow in a vacuum where you erase yourself. It grows where two solid presences meet and create pressure. The moment you stop trying to be approved and start standing where you are, everything changes. This isn't about lines. It's about weight. If you miss this, you'll keep repeating the same cycle. Different faces, same outcome, polite exits, fading interest. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. The moment doesn't need to be filled. It needs to be held. And in the next part, you'll see exactly what she's scanning in that first split second. The silent test that decides whether you're a man she follows or a man she forgets. Here's what's happening in the first seconds. And it's brutal because it's silent. She's not judging your resume. She's not running a checklist of your hobbies. She's not deciding your value based on one perfect sentence. She's scanning for one thing, whether your energy bends toward hers or stands on its own. That scan happens faster than thought. A flicker in her eyes, a half freeze in her smile, a subtle angle of her shoulders away from you, like a door closing without a sound. Men feel it as the vibe changed. But the vibe didn't change. The power dynamic revealed itself. You think attraction dies in the content of your words. It doesn't. It dies in the posture behind them, in the tone that asks instead of states, in the eyes that search for approval instead of resting with certainty, in the micro pauses where you wait for her reaction before you decide who you are. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately because he spent his life watching rooms. He knew that the moment a man seeks permission, he teaches everyone present how to treat him. Not through humiliation, through inevitability. When your presence says, "Please accept me," the room hears, "I am negotiable." Picture a man named Marcus, successful on paper, confident in meetings, a sales manager, the kind of guy who can handle numbers, deadlines, pressure. But then he meets a woman at a rooftop dinner, and his body tells a different story. He's introduced. He smiles politely. He asks about her work. She answers. And then silence arrives. Silence is where men reveal themselves. Marcus panics. He doesn't hold the pause. He fills it. Another question. Then another. His words aren't wrong. His delivery is. His shoulders round slightly forward. His voice softens as if he's trying not to disturb the air. His eyes keep checking her face for signs he's doing well. He isn't talking to her anymore. He's negotiating with her expression, and she feels it. Not as disgust, as certainty. The invisible message isn't, "I'm interested." It's, "I need you to like me, or I don't know what I am." That message is poison to desire, because attraction is not built on you admiring her. Everyone admires her. Attraction is built on your ability to remain whole in her presence, to not shrink, to not overcompensate, to not turn her into your judge. Machiavelli said the stage matters. Your presence is the stage. Your words are props. If the stage shakes, no prop can save the scene. You can memorize the best lines on earth. If your energy is pleading, they will land like paper. This is why questions aren't neutral. In the wrong hands, questions are confession. They confess that you don't have a frame, that you're hoping she will provide direction, that you're waiting for her to make the moment safe for you. But safety is not what creates pull. Safety is what ends it. Now, let's be precise. This isn't a rule that says never ask anything. It's a rule about sequence and power. If you open with questions, you start the interaction in a lower position. You place her above you as the evaluator. You become the applicant. The moment becomes an interview. And in interviews, nobody falls into desire. They fall into politeness. What she's really scanning is steadiness. If she disagrees with you, do you flinch? If she doesn't smile right away, do you rush to fix it? If there's a pause, do you fill it like a drowning man grabbing for air? Steadiness is not loud. It's the calm refusal to be moved by every micro-signal. Most men confuse that calm with coldness. It's not coldness, it's self-possession. And self-possession is magnetic, because it implies something rare. You have a center. Here's the metaphor that will lock it into your mind. Imagine you step onto a wooden bridge over a deep canyon. If the bridge trembles, you don't care how pretty the scenery is. Your body won't relax. You'll want to leave. That's what it feels like when a man's presence shakes. Her nervous system registers instability. She doesn't call it that. She calls it no chemistry. But chemistry is often just stability with tension. So how do you change what she scans? You stop trying to earn the moment. You start holding it. Before you speak, you claim your space with your body. Shoulders open, feet planted, chin neutral, not rigid, not performative, just grounded. Your eyes don't dart, they rest. Your voice doesn't rise to entertain. It lands as if your words have value before she approves them. Then you lead with a statement that carries your energy, not a compliment that begs, not a rehearsed line that tries too hard. A simple frame, something like, "This place has that weird calm before the storm energy." Or, "You look like you're deciding whether this room is worth your time." Or, "I'm getting the sense you're the only person here who isn't trying to impress anyone." You're not asking her to give you content. You're giving the moment shape. And then you pause. That pause is where power lives. The pause says, "I don't fear silence. I don't fear your reaction. I'm not rushing to be chosen." It creates tension, not conflict, tension. The kind that makes her lean in because now her mind is engaged, not with facts, but with feeling. If you do this, something flips. She stops scanning for weakness and starts scanning for depth. She starts wondering who you are, not because you asked her to talk, but because you showed her there's something here that doesn't need her permission to exist. And in the next part, we're going even deeper, because there's a specific shift that changes everything. The moment she senses you're waiting for her to set the tone. You'll learn how to reverse that in real time, so she feels your pull before she even understands why. The moment she senses you're waiting for her to set the tone, the decision is already made. It doesn't feel dramatic. There's no rejection speech, no harsh signal, just a quiet, internal conclusion. This man is not leading. And in the theater of attraction, The one who doesn't lead fades into the background no matter how good his intentions are. This shift happens faster than most men can track. One glance that doesn't return, one slight turn of her body away, one pause that grows heavier instead of charged. You might still be talking, still smiling, still asking questions, but she's already somewhere else. Attraction doesn't end with a bang. It leaves while you're still performing. Ethan didn't notice it either. He was smart. Early 30s. Software consultant. Used to thinking his way through problems. He met her at an art gallery opening. White walls, wine glasses, soft conversations floating through the room. She stood there relaxed, scanning the crowd like someone who knew she belonged. Ethan approached with a polite smile and opened with the same question he'd always used. "What do you do?" She answered. Polite, brief. Her eyes flicked past him for half a second, long enough to register he didn't notice. Ethan felt the space open beneath his feet and rushed to fill it. Another question. Then another. His voice lifted slightly, not with confidence, but with urgency, as if each answer might unlock the door. But she wasn't listening for information. She was listening for weight. Could he hold the moment? Or was he hoping she would? Could he stand in the silence without reaching for her approval? Or would he collapse into performance the second the air went still? By the time Ethan realized, her attention had shifted to someone else entering the room. It was already over. Not because of his words, because of the invisible message beneath them. "I need you to anchor this, because I can't." Machiavelli would have called this the fatal tell. When your presence depends on her reaction, you've surrendered the stage before the first act begins. Leadership and attraction isn't about dominance, it's about stability. It's about making the space feel solid enough that someone wants to step into it. Most men misunderstand this and try to fix it by acting bolder, louder, more aggressive. That fails because it's still reactive. It's still chasing. The shift isn't about pretending to be confident. It's about removing the need to be validated at all. Here's the truth that unlocks everything. The one who sets the emotional tone controls the interaction, not by force, by certainty. When you open with questions, you hand her the wheel. When you rush to fill silence, you tell her you don't trust yourself to hold it. When you soften your stance the moment she challenges you, you show her that your center is negotiable. And a negotiable center cannot generate desire. Think of it like weather. A storm doesn't ask permission to exist. It doesn't check whether the sky approves. It arrives, fully formed. People respond to it, not because it begs, but because it's undeniable. That's presence, not aggression, not arrogance, just self-contained force. So, what does it look like in real time to reverse the shift? First, you stop leading with her. You lead with you. You speak from your frame, not hers. You share an observation, a stance, a feeling, without cushioning it. Not to provoke, to establish ground. Then you let it sit. You don't chase her reaction. You don't rush to explain. You let her respond if she wants to. That alone changes the dynamic. Because now she isn't deciding whether to carry the moment. She's deciding whether to enter yours. If she responds, you don't jump to reward her with approval. You stay steady. If she disagrees, you don't flinch. You don't rush to agree. You let disagreement exist without panic. That calm is the signal she's been looking for. Not because she wants to fight, but because she wants to know you don't disappear under pressure. This is where most men fail next. She says she doesn't like something you like, or she challenges a comment you made. Instantly, the average man smooths it over. He laughs. He retreats. He says something like, "Yeah, you're probably right." He thinks he's being easygoing. She reads surrender. Disagreement isn't the threat. The threat is abandonment of self. Machiavelli warned that the man who abandons his position to please another has already declared himself the weaker party. In attraction, this plays out instantly. You don't lose points because you disagree. You lose them because you dissolve. Imagine a man at a rooftop party, lights strung above, city humming below. He comments that the place has a calm, almost reflective energy. She responds, unimpressed, saying it feels pretentious. The test isn't about the bar, it's about him. If he laughs and folds, the stage collapses. Not because she wanted him to argue, but because she wanted to see if his presence could survive a ripple. The man who holds his ground calmly, not defensively, not aggressively, sends a different signal. He says, "I hear you, and I'm still here." That steadiness creates tension, and tension is the raw material of desire. Here's the metaphor that seals it. Think of two tectonic plates meeting. If one dissolves on contact, nothing happens. But when both hold their form, pressure builds. That pressure creates energy, heat, movement. Attraction works the same way. It requires two solid forms, not one collapsing into the other. When you stop waiting for her to set the tone, you stop asking permission to exist in the moment. You become the reference point instead of the respondent. And once that happens, her behavior changes without you saying a word. She leans in. Her attention sharpens. Her questions start appearing naturally, not because you demanded them, but because curiosity woke up. In the next part, we'll go deeper into one of the most misunderstood moments in attraction, the first disagreement. Why most men destroy their presence right there, and how handling it correctly doesn't just preserve attraction, it amplifies it. The first time she disagrees with you is not a problem. It's the test you didn't know you were taking. Most men fail it instantly, not because they're weak, but because they misunderstand what's at stake. They think disagreement threatens connection, so they rush to erase it. They smile too fast. They soften their voice. They abandon their position as if harmony were more important than presence. In their mind, agreement feels safe. In hers, it feels like collapse. Machiavelli warned about this dynamic centuries ago. The man who retreats at the first sign of resistance teaches others exactly how little weight he carries, not through words, but through instinct. Power, in any form, is sensed before it's understood. Imagine a moment that seems harmless. You've been talking for a while. The energy is steady. You comment on the place you're in, the mood, the music, the atmosphere. She tilts her head and says she doesn't like it. That's all. No insult, no attack, just a difference. This is where everything splits. One path leads to erasure. The other leads to magnetism. The man who panics feels the tension rise in his chest. He wants to smooth it over. So he laughs lightly and says something like, "Yeah, you're probably right." He tells himself he's being flexible, mature, easygoing. But what he's actually doing is dissolving his center. And the moment he does, something in her shuts down. Not consciously, viscerally. Because she wasn't testing his taste. She was testing his spine. Disagreement is not conflict, it's contrast. And contrast is where attraction breathes. The man who holds his ground doesn't argue. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't try to convince her. He simply stays where he is. Calm, unmoved. He might say, "Interesting, I actually like it." Or, "That's fair, but it works for me." Then he lets the silence sit. That silence is not emptiness, it's pressure. In that moment, she feels something rare. A man who doesn't collapse when the air shifts. A man who doesn't need her agreement to remain intact. That steadiness is deeply unsettling in the best way. It creates tension without hostility, strength without force. Machiavelli understood that yielding too quickly doesn't make you likable. It makes you predictable. And predictability kills desire. The man who always agrees has no edge, no weather of his own. He exists only as a reflection of whoever stands in front of him. Think of it like this. A river that changes direction every time it meets a stone never carves a canyon. It disappears into the ground. But a river that holds its course shapes the land around it. Calmly, inevitably. When you handle disagreement well, you don't push. You don't retreat. You hold. Your body stays relaxed. Your voice stays even. Your eyes don't dart. You acknowledge her perspective without surrendering yours. You show, without saying it, that your presence doesn't depend on agreement. That is the signal she's reading. This is where many men confuse dominance with aggression. They think holding ground means debating, correcting, overpowering. It doesn't. True dominance is composure, the refusal to be rushed out of yourself. When you master this, disagreement becomes fuel instead of friction. It sharpens the moment. It gives the interaction texture. She doesn't feel threatened. She feels engaged, curious, awake. Because now she's not talking to a man who wants to be liked. She's talking to a man who knows where he stands. And that, more than any line or tactic, is what makes her see you differently. Here is the truth most men never hear. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Tension is not the enemy of attraction. The absence of tension is. When everything is smooth, polite, agreeable, and safe, nothing imprints. The moment passes through her mind without resistance, like water over glass. No friction means no heat. No heat means no memory. Machiavelli understood this at the level of instinct. Emotion is what binds attention. Tension is what creates emotion. Ask yourself this honestly. When was the last time you remembered a conversation that was perfectly nice? No disagreement, no pauses, no edge. You don't remember it because your nervous system never woke up. But the moments that stay with you, the ones that replay later, always carried uncertainty. A pause that lingered. A statement that didn't resolve immediately. A difference that wasn't smoothed over. Most men destroy these moments without realizing what they're doing. They feel the air tighten and rush to relax it. They sense silence and hurry to fill it. They notice contrast and erase it with agreement. They think they're being respectful, mature, emotionally intelligent. In reality, they're draining the interaction of its pulse. They turn a living moment into background noise. Machiavelli would say they lost control of the stage. Picture a man on a date. He's intelligent, well-spoken. He wants things to go well, so he stays on safe ground. Questions with no edges, opinions that adjust instantly. Compliments that ask for approval instead of giving recognition. She answers him, but her attention drifts. Not all at once. Slowly. Her eyes wander. Her body leans back. The energy flattens. He feels it and assumes he needs to try harder. What he actually needs is to stop trying to be comfortable. Earlier that night, she mentioned something vivid. A street near her place that smells like rain before it falls. Her voice changed when she said it. Her eyes sharpened. That was tension. That was an opening into emotion. But he didn't stay there. He moved on to another safe question, another neutral response. The spark died quietly, not from rejection, but from neglect. This is the mechanism most men never learn. Tension equals emotion. Emotion equals memory. Remove tension, and you remove memory. Machiavelli saw this in politics and war, but it applies perfectly here. When you smooth everything over, you reveal everything. You turn on all the lights and kill the shadows. And without shadow, nothing feels alive. This doesn't mean creating conflict. It means allowing contrast, allowing silence to exist without panic, allowing disagreement without retreat, allowing your thoughts to stand without explanation. The man who becomes unforgettable is not the one who entertains. He's the one who can hold tension without fear, without anger, without the need to resolve it immediately. That ability signals something rare: internal control. Think of tension like a drawn bow. If you release it too quickly, the arrow falls short. If you never draw it, there's no power. But if you hold it steady, calm, grounded, intentional, the release carries force. Attraction works the same way. Most men think presence is about talking. It isn't. Presence is about restraint. It's saying something specific and letting it sit. It's sharing an opinion without cushioning it. It's allowing silence to breathe instead of suffocating it. When you do this, something shifts in her. She leans in slightly. Not because she didn't hear you, but because the energy pulled her forward. Her curiosity activates. She starts engaging, not out of politeness, but out of interest. You're no longer filling space. You're creating it. This is the difference between being a conversation and being an experience. Machiavelli would remind you that power is not about overpowering others. It's about commanding yourself. The man who can sit in tension without collapsing doesn't chase approval. He doesn't perform. He lets the moment come to him. And this is where most men wake up. They realize attraction was never about being agreeable. It was about being grounded. It was never about asking the right questions. It was about holding the right energy. It was never about impressing. It was about allowing the moment to carry charge. When you stop smoothing every pause, stop apologizing for your stance, stop bending at the first sign of difference, you become something rare. Not louder, not flashier, heavier. Your words slow down. Your silence gains weight. Your presence lingers after you leave. And here is the awakening that changes everything. Attraction doesn't grow when you chase it. It grows when you bring real energy. Speak from conviction and allow tension to exist without fear. When you stop trying to be chosen and start standing where you are, something fundamental shifts. You are no longer trying to be remembered. You are remembered. Not because you were perfect, not because you were safe, but because you made her feel something unresolved, something alive, something that stays. And once a man understands this, he never walks into another moment the same way again. Attraction was never about saying the right thing. It was never about clever questions, perfect timing, or flawless delivery. It was always about something deeper, something most men were never taught to cultivate. Presence with weight. You've seen it now. Why comfort kills desire. Why politeness without a center becomes invisibility. Why tension, when held calmly, becomes the spark that burns memory into the mind. This isn't a trick. It's a shift in how you occupy space. The man who leaves an impact doesn't chase reactions. He doesn't rush to fill silence. He doesn't bend his spine to protect a fragile moment. He stands where he is, grounded, certain, allowing the air between him and others to carry charge. That charge is what people feel before they understand it. Machiavelli knew that power begins long before words, in posture, in restraint, in the refusal to ask permission to exist. When you master yourself at this level, you stop performing for approval. You stop auditioning. You stop negotiating your presence. And something remarkable happens. People lean in. Conversations slow down. Moments stretch instead of collapsing. Not because you demanded attention, but because your presence invited it. This is the difference between being noticed and being remembered, between being liked for a night and leaving a mark that lingers. When you bring real energy, speak from conviction, and let tension breathe, you become a man whose world others want to step into. So the next time you walk into a room, don't ask how to impress. Ask whether you are anchored. Don't ask what to say. Ask whether you can hold silence without fear. Don't ask whether she approves. Ask whether you approve of yourself standing there, because the moment you master that, you'll never need to chase anyone again. You won't be trying to create attraction, you'll be embodying it.